Hello and welcome to Let's Talk. I'm your host DJ Kelly and my co-host is Tom Latham. And today we'd like to welcome Cuyahoga County Sheriff David Gould, and our subject is becoming a leader. Welcome to our show, David.
Thank you very much, Patty, and thanks, Michael.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
What inspires you to a career in law enforcement?
Good question, Todd. I appreciate it. I got out of the service, the U.S. Army, in 1970. I went in 1967, and I took the state police test when I got out, and I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I was still young. I was 21. I just spent 3 years in the Army, and so I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I took the state police test hoping that I would pass it, and I did. And I was lucky because they took 200 out of 40,000 that took it at that time. So I went to the State Police Academy, and that was the beginning of my career in 1970. I spent 35 years in the troopers. So really nothing inspired me to do it except the test was when I got out, and the timing was right.
Do you remember what your first day as a state trooper was like?
Well, another good question, Dad. Let me tell you, it was just like the Army, because the first day of the state police was the academy. You went to the academy at the state police back then in 70, and currently 6 months you're in academy learning all the laws and certainly how to be a police officer. So it reminded me of my military days and basic training as an Army soldier. So it was kind of, identical. They weren't fun back then. It was very tough, a lot of physical, a lot of emotional, a lot of studying, a lot of tests. So my first day was not that much fun, but when I got out of the academy and became a trooper, I can vividly remember my first year as a brand new trooper, being alone on the road up in Wayne County with one other trooper for the whole county, and it was an interesting time. It was very tough. There was a lot of crime up in Wayne County at the time, a lot of actually homicides back then. So I can vividly remember my first year and every year afterwards, but the first year was probably the toughest because you're out there alone. You're just a brand new guy, learning how to become a cop and learning how to become a trooper.
The sheriff is an elected position. Does answering to the voters every 4 years affect the way you do your job?
Another good question, Kelly. Kelly and Todd have had great questions. It's not supposed to affect the way you do a job in an elected position, but we're all human beings. It does affect it. It really does. You have to deal with the county legislature for your budget every year, not every 4 years, every year. I have a $12 million budget. I have over 215 people working for me at the sheriff's office. So it does affect you in that way that you have to deal with the 15 people with the county legislature to get your budget passed. They don't interfere with the operations of everyday police work. They let me do that, and I'm grateful for that.
Has your viewpoint on any issues changes over the years?
Good question. It has. When you first start off as a police officer, unless you've been in that position, you don't know how it is. But when you first start off as a police officer, after the training, the 6 months of training, whatever it may be, you almost think you're like invincible. You're out there, you've been trained how to handle every situation that may come along, and so you kind of think you're invincible as a young police officer, whether it be with the state police, the Auburn PD, with the Cuyahoga County Sheriff, or New York City PD. You're young, you're aggressive, and over the years, everyone, I think, in every occupation mellows. I certainly have. I certainly don't think I'm invincible anymore. I have to run a department. I have to keep our deputies safe. My mindset has become a leader rather than an individual when you first start as a police officer, but it has changed immensely over the last almost 50 years. So again, the position I'm in, because of the leadership position I'm in, the mindset has changed a lot from being on the road, absolutely.
Was there ever incident that shaped your lookout as a law officer?
Good question, Todd, I appreciate that. There's probably a lot of them over my career, but the best incidents I can give you is in 1978, the state police started a school for hostage negotiators. And that was because of the 1980 Olympics in Lake Placid. There was 50 of us out of 5,000 that took a test. And if you scored high enough on that test, you became a negotiator, a hostage negotiator, they call it. And I was one of them. So through that training, and after going to the Olympics, for 35 years, I was a hostage negotiator in the state police. And so many times, you negotiate with people, it's just not with hostages, it's with barricaded people that want to take their own lives, that want to commit suicide. So several times, dozens of times, I was in the right place at the right time, was able to talk to a lot of different people and talk them out of committing suicide, hurting themselves, or hurting a hostage that they may have. So there was numerous cases that I believe that probably, hopefully, I saved some lives, and those people needed some help. I was honored enough and lucky enough to be able to do that dozens of times. And it was something I'll never forget, and I'll be grateful for the rest of my life.
You've accomplished a lot in your career as a sheriff. In your eyes, what has been your biggest accomplishment in your sheriff career and law enforcement?
Thank you, Kelly, for the question. I don't know if there's one thing that has been the biggest accomplishment. I am very proud. When I took over almost 12 years ago now, when I became sheriff, I don't think the morale was that good in the sheriff's department. At least that's what I was told. They had, outdated weapons. They had outdated vests. And something I think, I know I changed that because we got them new weapons through the legislature, new uniforms, new vests. I believe the morale is the best it's ever been in the sheriff's department. And morale with a police officer is probably the biggest ally you can have, because when you're out there as a police officer, you have to depend on your fellow brothers and sisters in law enforcement, and whether it be with the state police, Auburn PD, us, or the local PDs in this county. We're all one family. We have to back up each other. We have to protect each other. We have to be there when someone needs our help.
What does Dave Gould like to do to relax?
I like to come and see you guys and make a video. Yeah, no, that's a good question. I don't relax a lot. I just truly don't. If I'm not working, I'm always going to functions. I'm on 36 committees in this county.
Wow.
As committees and boards. I just joined the Auburn Hospital Board. So I guess my relaxation, believe it or not, is going to functions that raise money to help people in this community. And I go to every function there is, whether it be every fundraiser. I'm going almost every night or every weekend to something. That's when I relax, I think, when I'm out with people, raising money to help people better themselves, to help people that can't take care of themselves, to help people that are underprivileged. That's when I relax, is when I'm doing something like that off the job, and I feel strongly about helping people. My mother and father my mother was born with polio, back in the 20s. And when I was young, my brother and my mother and father would go out and collect dimes for polio, and make sure that no one else was ever born with polio, that we put an end to that disease. That's where I learned my family values, and I probably get emotional, but that's what made me want to give back, is watching my mother and father. So that's the way I feel. I love giving back, and that's how I relax.
Well, thank you, Sheriff David Gould, for being here with us today. It's our pleasure having you. Thank you for being here, taking the time to be with us.
It's, something, Kelly, it's more my pleasure than yours. You're great people, and I enjoyed this morning.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.